Hello everybody and welcome back to another video for the day. Yeah, no, when it's not the memes times today, I wanted to try to one of the story format stuff. So, hey there, hi, we're going back into r/EntitledPeople. Keep your hands and feet inside of the weird at all times. Buckle up, buckaroo, and let go. Entitled, Sister-in-Law Wants Custody of My Baby. Background, me 36F, sister-in-law 40F. I've been married to her brother for over 10 years, and there's always been some jealousy and resentment from her. She's always felt like I've had the life that she wanted, not necessarily with her brother, but the marriage, the family, job stability, etc. I have 3 kids, 10F, 8M, and 3 months female. She got married last year, and they decided to start trying for a baby, but she was unfortunately told that she can't have children naturally. She was understandably devastated, and the family comforted her as best as we could. We recently had a family dinner, and in the middle of it, she says, "Girl, I think it is really unfair that you got to have 3 kids and I can't have any. Your baby is my last chance to raise a child, so I think you should give her to me during the week so I can create a monthly bond with her, and you can have her on weekends." Before I could respond, the entire table erupted with everyone talking at once, so I took my older kids upstairs. When I got back to the dining room, her husband was asking what the heck was wrong with her, and why would she even think to ask that? She was trying to justify herself when I asked them to leave. I also said that she is no longer welcome at my house or around my children until she gets help. She started screaming that I don't deserve my life or my children and that I stole her baby from her. My husband and mother-in-law kept apologizing and dragged her out of the house, still crying and screaming. Now my kids want to know why their aunt wants to take the baby. Edits. I've been reading the comments, but it's too many to reply, so here's a few points to it. 1. I have a security system and cameras already installed, and no one has keys to our house. 2. I will not be able to get a restraining order as this one incident isn't enough to justify it. 3. My husband and I spoke to the older kids about it the same night, and we'll be having another talk with them to reinforce that sister-in-law is not a safe person anymore. 4. Our country does not have the right to bear arms, so I have no interest in getting a firearm. 5. I'll be informing the school and daycare of the issue and giving them their photo. For those questioning the validity of the post, I completely understand. If I had heard about this last week, I wouldn't have believed it either. But it's unfortunately the situation I'm currently dealing with.
Oh yeah, you have too many kids. I think you should just give one to me, so I can have a mother friend.
No, you're treating their kids like livestock at that point.
No, you got too many. Just give one to me then.
There are other ways to be able to have kids. It said you just couldn't have them naturally. That doesn't mean you can't do stuff like surrogate or, I don't know, adopt. I'm fairly certain there's a lot of kids looking to be adopted. You could look into that. I finally told my father's infantilizing friend that I hate them. Years ago, my dad met Harold through mutual friends, and they hit it off. I was 18 and in college when I met him, and we never had a close relationship. However, he always seemed to think of himself as a family friend, and was extremely infantilizing and condescending towards me. Every time I saw him, I would try to tell myself it wasn't that bad, only for him to prove me wrong less than a minute later. Harold would disrespect my boundaries, saying things like, "Nah, you're not 19, you're a baby," while I was talking to other people and patronize me. My education or my hobbies, whenever he had the chance, he always noticed that annoyed me, to which he'd playfully ask if I hated him. I always said no, but only for my father's sake. The final straw came the day that Harold interrupted a barbecue to say, "I really like you, even though you're an impolite brat." I was 20 years old. I had been quiet all day working on a paper during the barbecue, but replied patiently and politely whenever anyone addressed me. And even if that hadn't been the case, I knew he didn't have the right to talk to me like that. After all, I started making an effort to avoid any events I knew that he would be attending. Yesterday was my father's girlfriend's birthday. They threw a small lunch party at my dad's apartment. I went there with my fiance and our 6-month-old son. Harold was there. I hadn't seen him in months, but he still talked to me as if I was a dumb child. Never mind that I'm engaged, a mother, a 26-year-old, and I spent the whole party ignoring his helpful advice about me being too young to get married or be a mom. It helped that most of the other guests seemed to disagree with him. My baby spent most of the afternoon sleeping. There's a bassinet in my old room. He woke up hungry, so I went to breastfeed him and excused myself from the party for a while. I got back to jokes and comments, all from Harold, about how I was probably struggling if my son was managing to leech me away for so long. He went on to interrupt a conversation I was having with another of my dad's friends to question pretty much everything about my parenting. He doesn't even have custody of his daughter, by the way, and to make more comments about my age. I decided I couldn't take it anymore after he asked if I had thought about giving my baby up for adoption. I got my son and told my fiance we were leaving. We said goodbye to everyone except Harold. When we got to the door, Harold came to ask why we were leaving. I tried to make up an excuse, but he kept trying to make us stay. After a small back and forth, he jokingly asked if I hated him, and this time I said, "Yes, I do. Can we go now?" He didn't say anything, and we left. On the way home, my fiance said he was proud of me. My father called this morning to say the opposite, and we had a small fight, but ultimately decided to drop the subject. I'm sure this isn't over, but if it keeps going, it won't be because of me. If this is far from my proudest moment, and a part of me regrets this, but I'm done with this guy. Edit Jesus Christ Superstar. That is a lot of comments. To answer the common questions, I don't think Harold is in love with me. Harold didn't tell me to give up my son. I asked if I had thought of doing so when I got pregnant. It was still an awful question, especially since he interrupted a conversation I was having with someone else, my dad's girlfriend's pregnant friend, who was asking about my own pregnancy and delivery to ask for it. I don't like making a big deal out of things unless it's necessary. If I am uncomfortable, I leave. If I don't like someone, I avoid them. It's usually less stressful. The fight between me and my father ended when I told him about the adoption comment. I don't think he gets that it's not the only reason I left, but it was definitely the one that broke the camel's back. I really don't need my father to stop being friends with Harold. He's a grown man capable of making his own bad decisions. And I never told my dad I hated Harold because I never thought I had to like him in the first place. He is my father's friend, not mine. And I've been distancing myself for Harold since I was 20, meaning I haven't seen him much in the last 6 years. My fiance was on the other side of the room and wasn't listening to Harold's comments. I filled him in when we got to the car. He is 100% on my side. Edit! I wrote an update a couple of hours ago, and that update goes as follows. The update. Hey guys, I wasn't going to write an update, but got some free time, and I figured I would fill you in. I'll start by addressing the very frequent assumption that Harold has feelings for me. I really don't think that is the case. His comments always come out as annoying and condescending, and never lewd. But I will say that your comments scared the dookie out of me, and the fact that the general consensus was screw Harold was weirdly heartwarming. I also want to add that while I did regret what I said a little bit, I never doubt I had done the right thing. I think most of my regret came from the fact that my 8 years of keeping the peace were over. I took some time to let the relief sink in. Truth be told, I have been wanting to do this since the barbecue incident, which was when I went from I don't like that guy to I can't stand that guy. My father told Harold the day after I made my previous post, when confronted about the adoption comment, he tried to twist it as him being genuinely concerned about me being a mom so soon, and that he didn't think I knew what I was doing. He did apologize to my father. I don't buy any of that. The next day, my dad told me about the call. He said that I should forgive Harold for what he thought was an honest misunderstanding misunderstanding. He also told me I should apologize too, since I overreacted by telling Harold I hated him for such a small reason. Many of Harold's past comments were made with my father close by. It often happened in the middle of conversations with other people, so he'd be too disgraced to register them. He also wouldn't notice them most of the time. My dad doesn't pay enough attention to anything that doesn't either concern or anger him, and he'll most likely forget it until he gets angry at something else later anyway. He's like that math head goldfish. We also have different definitions of what is offensive, so he'd never think that they were a big deal. I told my father I wasn't exaggerating when I said I hated Harold, and that the adoption comment was far from being the only reason. I listed most of the condescending treatment and comments I could remember, including the ones from the party. He didn't remember any of them. I made it very clear that I hated Harold for years prior to the party, and that I had nothing to apologize for. I then stated that I'm no longer coming to any events that Harold is invited to. My father doesn't need to stop being friends with him, or even stop inviting him to stuff, but he can no longer expect me to show up as well. I will ask him beforehand, and if he lies, I'll leave. My father called me dramatic, but I pointed out that I've been avoiding Harold for 6 years, and no one even noticed, so it clearly wasn't a problem. I've only seen him a handful of times since the barbecue incident, and only twice for more than a few minutes. The lunch party last week, and another party back when I was pregnant. It obviously didn't ruin my father's life. I'm not obliged to be friends to any more than he is to like mine. There was some back and forth, but he agreed to my terms. We spoke yesterday about something else, and he mentioned Harold was upset. I ignored that. I'm not going to North Carolina with my father. Yes, I am very well aware that he is an a-hole, and I came really close to cutting ties with him within the last few years. But I ultimately decided it wouldn't really fix anything. Maintaining my relationship with him has gotten a lot easier since I moved out, as we only see each other a couple of times a month. He gets frustrated that I don't call or text much, but doesn't complain about it anymore. I don't see the point in going no contact with someone who is no longer has any say in how I live my life. I'd rather just take note of what my father did wrong when I was growing up, and then make sure to raise my own child differently. He's on thin ice, though, and has been for some time. He is not allowed to babysit, mostly because I don't trust him to spend more than an hour alone with a baby without falling asleep on the couch. I began pushing for him to start doing therapy back when I got pregnant, and he finally got started back in June. His behavior around me and my younger sister, who still lives between our very divorced parents, has improved a lot since, and I've made it clear to him that he won't be allowed near my son if he stops attending. And this is the first time in my life my father has improved his behavior, and it's hard to be hopeful, but I'm trying. And if I ever go no contact with my father, it won't be because of frickin' Harold. So that's it. Overall, I'm glad I don't have to deceive anyone anymore. My relationship with my father is rocky, but I won't dwell on it. My main responsibilities are my son, my fiance, and my job, and that is not changing anytime soon. And those who mentioned Jesus Christ Superstar and Blue Oyster Cult in my last post, has anyone told you you're freaking awesome today? 'Cause you are. Oh yeah, no, Blue Oyster Cult is very good. But yeah, no, don't let anybody's relatives or relatives, friends, spouses, whatever, treat you like a freaking child. 'Cause like, you're an adult, you don't have to stick around them. Just because they happen to be invited to the same event does not mean you have to socialize with them if you don't want to. And God forbid you don't want to go to them because they happen to be going to the same event as you. You're not obligated to stay in contact with somebody just because they're family. At the end of the day, the only thing you guys share is a genetic line. Deadbeat brother crashed my Crown Victoria, gets a night in jail that he won't forget. I, 21, have an older brother, Dave, fake name, that has always been a jerk to me. There's only a 1-year gap between us, but he liked to beat me up when we were kids, and he always acted like anything that was mine was also his. He was also somewhat of the golden child, which made me miserable. So, no surprise that I moved out at 18. My uncle is a now retired police officer, and he took me in after I left home. He even hooked me up with a decommissioned Crown Vic. I absolutely loved that car. I don't know why, but Dave hated the fact that I had a car. He drove 3 beater cars into the ground while my Crown Vic kept chugging along. Well, after his 3rd beater finally died when he drove it into a pole, he asked to borrow my car. I had a bad feeling and said I wasn't going to do that. He called me entitled and said that he needs the car to get to work. I told him to take the bus because I know how he drives and my Crown Vic was off limits. My parents called me after that and told me to just lend him my car. I said I won't, no matter what they say. I rely on the car that I needed as well, since it is my personal transportation. Dave wasn't the only one in the world with a job he needed to get to. My uncle congratulated me on standing up to them and gave me a high five. A few days later, when I got off work, the car wasn't where I parked it. I called my brother's cell and he didn't pick up. Then I called my parents and asked them if he had took my car. They denied it, so I said I was going to call the cops. And then they admitted that he borrowed it because he needed it. I told them he better bring it back right now or I'll have the police looking for him. They called me a jerk and then phoned Dave to bring my car back. He showed up in the parking lot in my car 20 minutes later. I demanded to know how he stole my car, and he held up a set of police Crown Vic keys that he had bought online. Some were made universal. I told him that if he ever stole my car again, I'd have him arrested. Then he had the audacity to ask for a ride home. I told him that he made me wait in the December cold after stealing my car so he could walk. He called me a jackwad before I drove away. After that, my uncle installed a tracking device in the car. When Christmas Day came, I was celebrating with family like I do every year. The roads were cold and icy, so I had to be very careful while driving. By now, you probably clued in on the title. Yeah, Dave borrowed my car again during the Christmas party. Apparently, he decided he was going to go pick up a friend and figured I wouldn't notice. But I did when I looked out the front window and saw that my car was missing. I pulled up the tracking app and saw that he was a few miles away. Then called his cell to yell at him. Everyone in the party saw this and asked what was going on. I said that Dave stole my car again, and my uncle confirmed it wasn't the first time. Dad told me over the phone to screw off and that he'd be back soon. I said he better not have been drinking, but he just hung up on me. Well, while I was watching the tracker app, the DOP stopped and didn't move for a while. Soon, we got panicked call from Dave asking for help. He had crashed the car because he couldn't handle the icy roads, and he wasn't used to the rear-wheel drive vehicles. So we piled in my parents' minivan and followed the tracker. We found Dave by the road and my Crown Vic nose deep in a snow-filled ditch. My uncle was furious as it was formerly a car of his department, and I was mad as heck at Dave for stealing my car again. My parents wanted me to let it go, but I said enough was enough and I was going to call the police. Dave begged me not to because he already had been drinking before he set off and would get a DUI. I said he was going to pay me back for the dang car then, or I would sue him. Well, as luck would have it, police were already aware of the accident and were driving in to check the scene. Someone else had called them, I guess. My parents tried to say that I was the one driving the car and they were just there to help me. I said that was not true and my uncle backed me up. In fact, one of the cops that was there recognized my uncle and they had a chat. Then they went to Dave and asked to see his license, which I then found out was suspended after he had crashed his previous car. Then they breath tested him. He wound up with cuffs slapped in his wrist while my mother was crying and begging the police not to take him away, but the officer just said that she and my dad could get arrested too for lying to the police. That shut my parents up, and we got back in the minivan. The Christmas party was ended early, and my parents drove me and my uncle home since he rode with me. They didn't say much to either of us the whole drive, and just sped away as soon as we were out of the van. They nearly slipped off the road themselves doing that. My brother was let out of jail the next day, and he looked so scared that he was practically crying. The cops had roughed him up a bit while talking about prison and the stuff that they had seen go on there. Dave had actually pissed himself during that, and they let him take a shower. That's when my uncle started cracking up and revealed to us that his friend in the department never filed the DUI and just charged for the suspended license, which was about a $600 fine. My uncle said he just wanted to teach Dave a lesson, and this would be the one and only time he'd ever get his help. Dave then apologized to me and said that he'd pay to have my Crown Vic fixed and would never touch it again. We got it pulled out of the ditch. The front end damage was actually minor. It needed a new front bumper, a headlight, and a grille. The damage was just superficial, thankfully. My parents have pretty much glossed over the whole incident and act like it didn't happen. Dave gave me the extra Crown Vic keys he had bought online and said that this has taught him a lesson he won't soon forget. Edit! Okay guys, I'm actually kind of tired of the many grippings about how my uncle broke the law by keeping my brother's DUI from ever being filed. I did not consent to that. I actually did not want him to do it, but by the time I found out, it was already done. My uncle isn't a bad person. He was actually a great cop that believed in people getting second chances, and he thanked people for that many times. Last year, I saw a random man recognize my uncle and thank him for putting him on the straight and narrow path some years ago. My uncle also detests racism, as do I. Look, sometimes life lessons come in many forms, and sometimes they come in the form of people pissing themselves. Taking a car without somebody's permission is still stealing if you're that person's sibling. It still does go by the legal definition of stealing. There's no, oopsie, I thought I could do this because I'm your brother or sibling or whatever. And I have a similar paranoia with my own car. If you're known to have cars get damaged after using them, I'm not going to be too keen on letting you use mine. Like, that's just pattern recognition. And yeah, if you have a sibling that's a dong to you, you're not obligated to like them just because you're family. Like, I've stated many times in the past, like I might have done in the last story, I believe, I don't know, I have absolutely dog water memory, that at the end of the day, all you share is a line of genetic coding. That's it. My stepdaughter absolutely deserves to be in here. During the 17 years that I have known her, my stepdaughter, 50, who is an alcoholic and an addict, has repeatedly created situations where she makes outrageous demands based on completely unreasonable expectations. Then, when the family sets a healthy boundary by saying no, she has a tantrum and screams things to the effect that she should know better than to expect that she will ever be treated like she's actually part of the family. Classic addict behavior. Always the victim. Nothing is ever her responsibility. For example, in 2021, my husband's entire family planned to spend a week at a B&B in Mexico, minus the adult grandchildren, because there wasn't enough room. We are the grandparents, and even my children weren't invited because I knew they wouldn't come because of the beer virus. And I wasn't sure I was going to go for the same reason. She got absolutely hysterical at being told that her son and his wife shouldn't come, complaining that the other grandchildren were going. The other grandchildren were 5, 8, 10, and 12. What the frick did she expect their parents to do with them for a week? Leave them at home alone? We did tell her that my children weren't even invited. And no, we didn't tell her why. We just said that not even all the adult children were being invited because we wanted to make a point at how unreasonable she was being about her son and DIL. That made zero difference. She still insisted that they deserved to come as well because they are part of the family too. Less than 2 years later, she gave her dad a heads up that she'd been planning to surprise him by showing up for his 70th birthday with her DIL, her son, and his half-brother, who her son and DIL had very recently taken in after both of his parents died within a year and a half of each other. The kid was about 13 and had serious emotional issues, including violent outbursts, and somehow she thought that my husband's birthday party with 14 strangers in her small house would be the proper circumstances in which to introduce this child to the entire family. She had originally told her dad that she wasn't planning to come, and he didn't encourage her to because alcoholic and addict and her resulting unpredictable dramatic behavior. And if that wasn't enough, throw in the fact that I have a crazy immune disease that has a significant impact on my nervous system, and I was still extremely ill / hypersensitive at that point, so I wasn't sure how I was going to manage with all of those people in the house to begin with. My 90-year-old mother was also planning to come, so the absolute last thing that either of us need was some kid having a violent episode in my little house. My husband explained to his daughter that we would be happy to have her come down with the three of them at a time that wouldn't be so crowded and potentially stressful for the child so he could meet us. But it wouldn't work for this party. And he pointed out that it isn't very considerate to invite 3 other people to a party that would take place in a small house or anywhere else without the permission of the host. I should also point out that she, her son, and daughter-in-law are all very obese, and remind you that 14 other people were planning to come, and small house. So even after what had happened around the trip to Mexico, she had the nerve to scream at my husband that she was an absolutely disgusting, horrible father and grandfather because he was obviously suggesting they leave this poor traumatized kid home alone. What the frick? Before she was yelling at him, even after he explained that the other grandchildren were only going to be there because they were too young to stay home alone, and of course that wasn't going to happen. Now she is yelling at him because she genuinely believed that he was suggesting that they come but leave the children home alone. So she had a fit in the family text chat saying that when people show you who they are, you should believe them, and she was obviously being shown that she and her family didn't belong in this family, and she left the chat in a huff and hasn't been back since. She hasn't been removed because she doesn't have an iPhone, so if she wanted to, she could come back in the same at any time. Edit. I understand that someone could create a new chat thread about her, but it doesn't seem important enough for anyone else to do it, and wouldn't be unless she shows back up and causes drama. He spoke to her once, and when she called some months later, but she was drunk and upset about something, and that was the end of that for him. He said that at this point, he doesn't care if he ever sees her or talks to her again unless she cleans up and sobers up a good and can be rational. Edit. When she was mid-tantrum about the party, I made one very innocuous comment, edit, which had been fully approved by my husband, at which point she texted me privately and told me that because of something I said the first time we met, that she had written me off and had no intentions of ever giving me another chance. We had his kids over to my house soon after we had gotten engaged, and nobody expected her to come because she had been in a period of self-isolation from the family. We were surprised and happy that she showed up, and I was wildly codependent at the time and had seriously bad boundaries. I told her that I was really happy that she came because I knew that she had been estranged from the family. I know I would never even think about saying anything like that now. So I finally found out about 15 years later that she had interpreted or heard what I said as ostracized, meaning of course that the rest of the family had rejected her, making her the poor victim, finishing off her text by saying that she wasn't going to discuss it with me, so basically don't confuse me with the facts and that I've got my mind made up because God forbid there should be any rational, calm, respectful attempt to actually work this out, or even consider it could have just been a misunderstanding, because then she might turn out to have not been the victim at all. I seriously suspect that she is so determined to believe that the family rejects her that she subconsciously or unconsciously sets up situations like how she handled Mexico and the party, because she knows it is going to be no, and then she gets to continue to play out her victim script. Her dad and brother agree with me, because she actually is quite intelligent. So although we could absolutely be wrong, we really believe that even if she might not be conscious of why she's doing it, she has to at least know at some level that her attempts will be met with a no. But with that, that is going to have to be it with the video. I had wanted to give a longer video format a try again, and I had seen something how videos over 30 minutes might get a little bit of an algorithm bump. So hey, if you're a new face and you would like to be absolutely amazing and see more videos like this one in the near future, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment down below to start up the wholesome internet discussions, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Also, if it's your first time seeing this new channel, hey, maybe check out another video. There's a whole bunch of other stuff you may actually really enjoy. But with that, I'll be sure to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye!